What is going on, everyone? Kids are busy, wife's watching a movie, so it is that time again. Last week we worked on behaviors. So we worked on this behavior class, and we added a behavior list inside of the gameobject class, and now we can attach them. So this week we are going to display these behaviors inside of a window that we'll just call the inspector, which is going to be right over here, just like the hierarchy. So first thing we need to do is we need to create like an attributes class, I guess you would call it. And we're going to make an attributes class that's going to hold the attributes of every behavior, if that makes sense. It'll look a little bit more clear once we start it. And actually, we don't need this. I think there's a couple things in here we probably don't need. Just okay, that's because we cached vertices and stuff. You know what? We probably don't even need that. Probably don't need to cache those. Vertices. These. Yeah, let's not cache these. There. That gets rid of that error or that warning. I hate warning messages. They get really annoying. Okay. So now let's come over here to the editor package and create a new class. And I guess we can call this I guess behavior attributes. I would say behavior attribute, but it's going to have all the attributes of the class. So, yeah, behavior attributes. All right, and this is just going to be kind of a storage class. It's just going to store everything we need in here. Okay, so we need a public logic behavior, because the behavior attributes is specifically for the logic behavior class, because everything that is going to be able to be attached to a game object is going to inherit from logic behavior. You're not going to be able to attach anything to a game object or any other script that does not inherit from logic behavior. So we'll store that in there just so that we have access to it. And we also need a public class with a question mark. Oh. Duh. I was getting ready to put something else. We'll just name it C. Alright, next thing we need is a public string fields. No. There, because it's going to be an array of strings. And you will see why we're doing an array of strings versus an array of fields here in a minute. Alright, so we'll do the constructor, because whenever we create it, it'll call the constructor, and we will just pass in the logic behavior that it is getting the information from. And of course, we're just going to set this dot behavior equals b. And then we are going to say c equals b dot get class. And this, what this does is it gets the class of the behavior. And then we store it up here. And we're storing this information because we don't want to get all this information every frame, because it's just going to eat up too much memory. Just using reflection that much will damage the performance. So we need to cache as much information as we can. So right here, we will now create a field array, f equals c dot get fields. And this is going to get all the fields. Date. Why did I just do that? No, I don't need date format. I need reflection. And this will get all the fields that are inside of this class. So all of our public variables are going to be thrown into here. Private variables will not show up. All right, so then we're going to say fields equals new string, and we're going to make it the length of the field array -1. And the reason why I'm doing -1, and the reason why it's going to change in the future as we're adding more stuff to the engine, is because logic behavior, right here I have a public Boolean. Even though this is the superclass, it's still going to pull this enabled Boolean. So anything that's public in here, so if it's a public variable, it's going to pull off of here as well. So right here, if you have, let's say, 3 fields in there that are going to be pulled off of here, you're going to subtract it by 3. If it's 1, like how I have it right now, it will just be -1, because we don't want those fields from logic behavior. We're going to do stuff with them. They're going to be in there. But as for displaying the variables in the box or window or whatever, we don't want it. So after we set the fields size to the field array size, we're going to say, actually no, I don't need to cache that. I was going to cache this variable, but for int I equals 0, and we're not caching that because, well, it's only going to happen once, so it's not going to do us any good. And I is lower than f dot length -1 again. Actually, no, let's get rid of that -1, and I'll put fields right here. So we'll just get the length of the fields right here, so that if we add more public variables later in the logic behavior, that way we don't have to change it here and here. We can just change it right here, and it'll automatically be good in the loop. So I is lower than fields.length, I ++ like normal. All right. Now, in here, what we're going to do is we're going to get the type, and we're going to make some splits from it. So what we need is we need the field name. So let's say it's like player name or whatever. We need it. We need the string player name, which is the variable name. But we also need to know what type of variable it is, whether it's a string or an integer or whatever. And in that case, it would be a string. So we're going to put it together. And that way, whenever we render it, all we have to do is split it, and we have the information that we need for that variable in one string. All right, so I'm going to get a string array, and we're going to call it split name, which is going to be equal to fi dot get type dot to string dot split, and then we're going to need to escape out of it and put a period. There. Pretty sure that's what I'm wanting to do. I don't know, we'll see. All right. Now we need to set the fields variable. So it'll be fields I equals fi dot get name, and that will give me the name, plus, and we'll just put a space right here, and that's what we're going to be splitting at later whenever we're rendering it. We need split name dot length minus 1. So this is going to be the name of the variable, which would be player name if that was the name of the variable, and this would be string. So whenever you pull something like this, the reason why we're doing this right here instead of just getting the type and then putting it to string is because let's say this variable type is of type like gameobject. Well, the name would actually be engine and then gameobject. Well, we don't want engine gameobject, we just want gameobject. So that's why we're splitting it like this, is because we want the very last word in there, which is going to be the actual name of the class and not the full class folder path. We don't want all that. All right, so that is it for the attributes class. So the next thing I think we should probably do is in the hierarchy, I think is where I put it. Right? Yeah, selected. I made it a string, not thinking, but we will leave this here for now, just for like oh god. So if we have game objects in the project panel and we drag it out there, it will move over the variables from that object and that's in the project panel. Prefabs. God, that's the word. Jesus. All right, so the prefab information will still hold over here, and it will still have this same selected number. Well, we don't want that because, or we don't want to use selected to check which ones we've clicked on, because multiple objects in the hierarchy is going to have that same ID number, and I wasn't paying attention. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, that's totally not going to work. So we will leave that there for the prefab information. But we do need to change how we do this. And I'm not going to keep it in the hierarchy. I'll go ahead and put it in the editor. That way, the other window, because it's going to be a separate class, we'll be able to access it too from the editor class. So let's see here. Right down here, let's remove this. So selected is no longer going to equal g.id. We're going to call editor dot set selected. No, we haven't created this, but we will. G. And we will get G here in a minute, which will just be the game object that we clicked on. And where did I put it? If selected does not equal right here. So I need to say going to remove this. So it's not going to be if selected does not equal null. Hold on. I'm trying to think of how to do this. Okay, right here. We need to say if it's not g dot equals, it would be if g equals selected. Correct? I think that is correct. Let's see here. All right, so now let's get the selected object. So it'd be game object. Yes, game object selected equals editor dot get selected, and we will create that function in a minute as well. You know what? Let's just go ahead and remove that. We'll get that at another time. Since selected is going to be the game object, I can just I can pull the ID off of it as well. So yeah, that'll work. Because the ID is already on the game object, so I don't really need to cache that. Alright, so now let's go over here and we will cache some of this information. So, do a what was it? I called it get selected and set selected. Public static final, because we don't want to be able to change the selected game object. and get selected. And this will return selected, which I'll put up there in just a second. And let's go ahead and grab that. And then right below it, we'll say public static void set selected gameobject G. Because there's going to be a couple different things that we need to do for this. First thing is we need to set selected to equal G, of course. But then we also need to set the attributes of G. So let's go right here. I know we've got an error, but we right now need to set up the inspector window. So inspector. So this will be our inspector window. And then right over here, oh, I'm in hierarchy, that's why. I need to be an editor. Right here we'll say private static inspector I. And do just like we did over here and say I equals new inspector. And then let's copy that. And this is just setting it all up. So we'll say I render. I know we haven't created it yet, but we will. Inspector. What is it? X. We need application dot width minus 200. Yeah, and that will put us all the way on the right side of the screen. Alright, and right here we will say private static gameObject selected. And that should get rid of that error. Yes. So then all we have to do is create the inspector class and add this method as well. Alright, closing into the end of this. So the inspector window is going to be just like how we did the hierarchy window. So it's going to be almost an exact setup. So right here, what we need to do is let's go ahead and create a private list of behavior attributes. We'll just call it A. Yeah, A for attributes. And equals new array list of behavior attributes. That way, it's nice and empty. Alright. Now we're going to be doing some looping in here. So we're going to go private int I equals 0. And let's do an offset variable as well. Do offset y equals 0. And I believe that's it. We'll see. Alright, so now we need to create a function right here. So in here, what we're going to do is, actually, no, I do need another one, don't I? Let's cache this window. For now, I'm going to use the regular window style just until I create another style. And actually, I think, don't I? I'm pretty sure I do. Yeah, right here I even have, oh, because boxes, whatever. I could have swore I didn't cache window somewhere as well. But, oh, right here, yeah, I never cached window. So, might as well right here, say public static GUI style window. I know you probably don't want to do this part right here, but we might as well do it just so that it's in here. And window. That way it's cached and we're not constantly getting it, because we need to watch that frame rate. Change that to window. That way it's nice and cached. And I'm just going to cache this in here as well, just because later I will actually change it to a new type of window. That way we're not having the same GUI window styles inside of each other, because it looks kind of bulky. So right here we'll say window equals editor.skin.get window. And the reason why I don't just say window equals editor.window is because whenever I change that and I make a new window style, I can just go in here and just change that part right there instead of changing the whole code. And I think that's all we have to do inside of the constructor. So now we need to create that render function. I think I passed in a rect. If I remember correctly, we took out the, yeah, because we're passing in the inside rect of the window. All right, so let's get the selected. So gameObject selected equals editor.getSelected. We're going to cache that just so that we don't have to call this stupid function every time we want to use it. So we're going to cache it right up here. And then we're going to say if selected equals null, then return out of this function. We no longer need to render anything else because the selected is null. So obviously there's not going to be any attributes. So now let's set offset y equals 0. That way we it starts out at 0 and we just move forward from there. So now let's loop into this. Do I is lower than a dot size and I plus plus. Come on. There. All right. Now inside of this loop, I need to cache the attribute. So we're going to say behavior attributes ATT. Make some phone calls while we're at it. Get selected. Change type of ATT to gameObject. What the hell? Oh. Duh. I need the attributes of it. I already got that. A.getI. Oh, stupid me. Okay. A.size. Yes, that is correct. So now what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the height. So float h equals att dot fields dot length times 18. The reason why we're going to do 18 is because, you know, whenever we're drawing, you know, we got our box. Well, our text, or at least I am, using 16. So I want two pixels of padding between this text and the text above it. So since it's 16, 2 pixel spacing, it's going to be 8. Or 18. So if you're using like 30 or something, you want 2 pixels of spacing, put 32. Or 5 if you're wanting 5 pixels of spacing. But now we need to calculate the padding of the window, because what this height variable is it's going to calculate how big this window needs to be. So it's going to be window.padding.y plus window.padding.height. And that will give us the amount of padding as well, on top of how much room we need to render the text inside of the window. So that should be the right calculation for that. I don't see why it wouldn't be. So now we need to actually draw the window. So we're going to call GUI.window. We're going to need new rect. No, we're just going to start it at 0. Then offset Y. And r.width, and then h. And the name of the window for this one is going to be a.getI.behavior.name. And that will give me the name of the behavior so that we could put it up in the window. Let's also add, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to. I'm going to put .java on there. And for F, we need this. We're going to create a function called draw variables. So inside of that function, we'll actually draw the variables. And then here we'll just pass in windows. or window. So our next function is public void draw variables, and then rect r. And then this function will draw our variables onto the screen. So, actually, I think, let's try this out real quick. Okay, so that's the window being drawn. Okay, I don't have, oh, because I don't have variables in here. Or something. I don't know, screw it. Let's just go ahead and do this. All right, so draw variables and call string fields equals a dot get I dot fields. I'm going to try to hurry this up. So I'm going to kind of fly through here. So for int f, and the reason why I'm creating a new one is because we're already using I. So yes, fields dot length, and then f plus plus. Yeah, since we're calling this inside of this loop, if I put I right here, it's going to change the I over here, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to create a new integer right there. So string split equals fields f, and then we split it at the space because we put a space in there. And for now we don't need any other information, so we're just going to render the labels. We're not going to be able to actually interact with them yet, but at least we'll be able to see the labels on the screen. So split 0, and we'll render it all the way to the left, and f times 18, because that's the that's what we're using right here. All right, now we need to be able to set attributes on or for the behavior. So set attributes, and this is why I believe it wasn't working, is because we were missing the ability to set the attributes. So a call a dot clear, just because we want it to be empty every time we set the attributes. We don't want to add on top of it. So we want to have a list of logic behavior L, which is going to be g dot get components. I don't know if I added this right after when I was playing around a couple weeks ago or not, but get components is just giving me the components. So it's just retrieving this private components variable. That's all it's doing. Let me find it. Yeah, it's just right here. So private final, because we never want to change it. and then returns the components. All right. Oh, there it is. I was like, why isn't it finding it? All right, and all we're going to do is once we get the list of components for that game object, we're going to call for I equals 0. I is lower than L dot size. And then I plus plus. And that's extra. And then all we're going to do, what in the hell did I just do? All right. So inside of here, all we're going to do is we're just going to add a new behavior attributes and then pass in l.getI. And that is going to set the attributes. Let's see if I'm missing anything. Am I just not calling something somewhere? I must not be. Render. Oh, set selected. What was I doing in set selected? Oh. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right here inside of the editor, we need to call I.set attributes and then pass in the game object. That's what I was going to do. So now, anytime we call set selected, it's going to set selected up top the variable, and then it's going to set the attributes for the window that we're going to draw over here. Click. There we go. It's not showing any variables, but it is drawing the class. All right, give me just a second and I'll take a look at why this isn't rendering. Okay, never mind. I can be an idiot sometimes. The reason is because I never added any variables in here, so of course it's not finding any variables. So it was just rendering the window itself because there's no variables inside of it. So if we add a variable to it, so we'll add t, which is a string. It's going to render it right here. So just to make it a little bit longer, I will say this is going to be some value. And then let's go public int another value equals 1. These don't really matter because it doesn't look at that, but now whenever we run it, we click on it, bam, right there. There is our variable names. And right over here on the next episode, we will add some interactions so that we can change these values. So that is it for this week. Sorry I took about what, 10, 12, almost 15 minutes over now. But next week will once again be super short. I don't know, probably 20 minutes or so. Because all we're going to do is just add the ability to interact with these variables. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.